Yes.
You have pulled at my heartstring. My name is Christian Buzz. I'm a member of the MPS School Board, and everything I want to talk to you about deals with gerrymandering. We have 9 school districts, right? In 2020, we'll have the census. In 2021, they'll be doing the calculations, and then a year after that, the State House is going to be redrawing lines. Out of our 9 school board districts, 2 are, 2 of us have half the school system, and a bunch of those students are minority students, Black students, poor students. I want to understand better, what is it that you plan to do to kind of help prevent gerrymandering? How would you support that, especially if there are more conservative members of both the State House, Congress, and every other level of government? And then, of course, anything you have to say around education, around supports for education, resources, funding that's been stripped, I would just love to hear your platform around it.
In answer to your first question, that Voting Rights Act that I'm talking about, not just restoring where we were before the Supreme Court struck down some provisions of the Voting Rights Act, and then Congress inexplicably, for the first time since 1965, failed to come together on a bipartisan basis to restore it, but really looking at some of the most pernicious examples of drawing districts specifically to split communities, to diminish the power of a vote. And I used to be one of those on my high horse who said, if you don't vote, there's something wrong with you. You're not, people have fought and died for this right. How could you? I've since realized by listening to people in Texas, they made a very logical decision based on how diminished their vote had become. They know effectively that vote will not make a difference by design and not by accident. So a new Voting Rights Act takes that into account and removes the power to draw that district away from the office holder and the politician, even if it is ostensibly for partisan advantage, as long as there is a racial or racist component of it, which there is in almost every example that we've discussed today, then you have a Department of Justice mandate to intervene and to protect those voters' ability to express themselves at the ballot box, to divide constituencies. We saw at Prairie View A&M, a world-class historically Black college in Texas, the student body literally divided between 2 different precincts, an inability to early vote on campus. Some of those students led a march of 6 miles to get to the voting place, where they waited 5 hours in order to cast their vote. They were essentially being told by the state not to vote. We're gonna make it so hard on you that you won't. When they transcend that, that's gotta be the inspiration to make sure that we follow with the laws and practices and enforcement that guarantee that they never have to do that again. Your second question about education, I mentioned the disparity in treatment, which speaks to equity, and the need to ensure that we recruit and retain more public school educators who look like the students in front of them. We proposed a $500 million increase at HBCUs and minority-serving institutions, in particular towards recruitment of teachers and paying the tuition for teacher training. We've also proposed completely wiping clean any student loan debt for any public school educator who wants to dedicate herself or himself to a career of public service. We're seeing a shortage in public school educators across this country, and I wonder, from your perspective as a trustee of one of the ISDs, whether you're seeing that here as well. But there's also a massive funding disparity. So minority majority schools are underfunded to the tune of $23 billion annually in this country. We propose to set up a permanent education fund of $500 billion. Part of that would be spent on addressing this funding disparity, as well as the equity challenge that I just described. And 2 other quick things. One is dropping back the start time universally to pre-K for every child in this country. So instead of 4 or 5 years old, where some kids are already 10 months back in reading comprehension, 3 or 4 years old, so an even start line for every child. And then making sure that we support you as a trustee by fully funding the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is $20 billion underfunded from the federal government. When we give you as a trustee those resources, we free up local property tax dollars to pay teacher salaries, invest in deferred maintenance, provide a world-class public school education for those children under your care. And so I think these are some real concrete steps that we could take to address some of the challenges that we've got in public education right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.